Sometimes we put all the hard work, but the thought of seeing ladies excel without so much hard work is kind of fun. Because we burn all the night and someone just uses a one-night stand to make the grades.
And there is nowhere in the media where sex for grades was mentioned, you understand? There is no evidence in anywhere.
Tonight, confronting the sexual harassment pandemic, we connect Ghana and beyond for a frank and honest introspection. We connect after the break.
Ma, please give me your phone. Let me make a quick call.
So you're still on that network that gives you fair data and talk time, when Vodafone has double the Red 1, Red 2, and Red 5 offers. For 5 CDs, Chikra. You get 250 minutes to call all networks, 250 megabytes data, and more.
I'm moving to Vodafone today. Switch to Vodafone to enjoy double Intusor on Red bundles of 1, 2, and 5 CDs. Enjoy double talk minutes to call all networks and double data to browse. Vodafone always gives you more. Dial *200# to subscribe now. Terms and conditions apply.
The future is exciting. Ready?
Thank you, folks. On my A list today, show some love for Contractor EB. So, Contractor, what do you think about the country's changing skyline?
Oh, send them down there, Yuma. Across skyline, they change you, papa.
Wow. Contractor, don't you get worried when you hear of buildings collapsing?
I'm out for an one on Tassam. It is the likability of using low quality product.
Please explain why.
Yeah, cement is no quality on your gasem. Village of Fefu. It was built with gasem. Says the gasem all construction. See what pumping. N1, can you tell market? Go to Kumasi Airport, Cape Coast Stadium, a trouble gas project in Gasebo. Messi, what the quality? You know what is quality?
Gasem, 3 cement grades, greater value. Gasem, the nation builder.
Looking for the perfect furniture for your home? Look no further. Antate Furniture Ghana has got high-quality furniture from Portugal, and our exotic furniture can be customized in fabrics and leather colors of your choice. Sofas, center and coffee tables, TV stands, armchairs, dining chairs, beds, dresses, sideboards, consoles, shelves, entrance halls, and decorations. Visit us today on the Spinktest Road, adjacent to Setmat Computers. Call us 0246 659 338 or log on to antate.com.gh. Antate, design for life.
Hey, Babre! Oh, Charlie, but why you vex like that? Charlie, I vex rough. I bought a car with insurance from my friend Jay. You know he's relocating abroad, right? Some ugly church scratched my brand new second-hand car so bad. And you won't believe my insurance say I don't have insurance, so they won't pay. They lie back.
But hold on, bro. Why? You don't know say insurance no be transferable?
Oh, how? You must be kidding, right?
I am very serious. Motor insurance no be transferable. Insurance companies pay claims when it be genuine. You won't believe this, but on a daily basis, insurance companies pay an average of 1.6 million Ghana cedis claims on motor insurance alone, plus all other insurance claims paid too. Now multiply that by 365 days.
Oh, Charlie, give me a second. Let me receive this phone call. Yeah, hello.
It's been a year of God's continuous goodness, peace, and abundant blessings. Come, let's say thank you together at this year's MTN Stands in Worship as we are led into God's presence by Selena Boateng, Kwesi Oteng, Sisi Chum, Joe Metal, Eldo Mriku, Akese Brimpong, Koda, Diana Hamilton, and from Nigeria, Prosper Ochimana, the Akuame Hitmaker, happening on Saturday, 2nd of November at the Fantasy Dome, Trade Fair, La, 4 p.m. sharp. Dial *713 *6# to purchase your tickets at 20 Ghana cedis and 50 Ghana cedis. All proceeds will be donated to charity. So, join us say thank you to God for his goodness. And to set your favorite artist's song as your caller tune, just dial *1355# to download at only 26 pesos for 60 days.
The Kingdom Books this year back to school promotion is in conjunction with Citidia Supermarket. Buy school items worth 100 Ghana cedis from Kingdom Books and get 12% discount voucher to purchase from Citidia and vice versa. School items include textbooks, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books across all Kingdom Books branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, and Cape Coast. Kingdom Books, where quality and affordability is assured. For further information, call 0302 764209 or 0302 746101 and 0501 401050. Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans Manson. I listen to you every day, and I encourage you and thank you for all the educative programs you mount.
And you are live on Joy 99.7 FM. This is Ghana Connect. You know what has been the biggest topic this week and has become one of the biggest issues that we've been confronting. Well, triggered, rightly or wrongly, depending on where you stand, by a BBC documentary that unearthed the so-called alleged sex for grades at the University of Ghana and UNILAG in Nigeria. On the back of that, though, I believe the conversation has moved on. There's a bigger conversation about sexual harassment that happens across the society, really. And it started with the education institution, a tertiary institution, but if you listen to those who have been advocating on this, they say it's a bigger problem than just the universities. And there are many views on this that we'll attempt to bring into the conversation tonight. But let's start from where this started, the University of Ghana. The students there themselves have been debating the conversation, have been debating the topic, which is the sexual harassment from lecturers who use their positions of power to abuse and harass them. A few of them spoke to us this week.
From the documentary, I saw that some of the lecturers were asked and some denied that they ever did that. And that is even why they brought out the video, because they denied it. But are you shocked? Some videos, no. But then the particular one I saw from my lecturer, yes. Because I didn't see him to be such a lecturer. How did you see him? He's strict. He's strict when he wants to be or something. He keeps telling us that the course he's treating this semester is very difficult. So we have to learn how to pass. And he doesn't say anything. Just says you have to learn how to pass. I think the people who are caught should be penalized, but it will still go on.
Okay, it's a good thing that's come up because we believe it has been going on. Because normally for guys like this, and then we put all the hard work, but the thought of seeing ladies excel without so much hard work is kind of fun. Because we burn all the night and someone just uses a one-night stand to make the grades. And looks like my all nights are wasted. It's kind of funny. So no matter what you do, it's still going to happen. So yeah.
So, views from students there. I mean, subsequent to that, we know the two lecturers who are seen in the video have been interdicted. We know there is a sexual harassment policy that is now become a criteria for accrediting universities across the country being implemented in all universities. And we will invite you to join us in this particular conversation wherever you are. But in the studio with me, connecting in the studio is Esther Ama, is international journalist, director of the EAA Media Productions, Media Communications lecturer, columnist at the BNFT and social commentator, has been writing a lot on this subject on social media. Esther, always happy to have you.
Thank you.
Join the conversation. Also joining us is Professor Goski Alabi, Vice Chancellor of Lawe Open University College. Prof, thank you again for agreeing to join us. Also joining us tonight is you know who, Ifya Pokwa is editor at Adom FM, holds her own views on this subject. We'll be joined by a student shortly at the University of Ghana. Also joining us tonight is this lady. I'll only introduce her in song.
I could tell you wanted to. 'cause I can't go home without you. Won't leave alone, 'cause if I wake up without you, I'll leave it with the break of dawn. So let us try to
Super Hits Radio. Joy 99.7. Super Hits Radio.
By introduction is a name first or who she is first. She's a Ghanaian, German soul singer, songwriter, entrepreneur. What else do I say? She's Ya Kutu. Hello, Ya. Thank you for connecting with that. And I've hosted her recently where she talked about this same subject for an hour in the midst of a lot of friendly faces, but people who were very provocative in what they said also. Yeah, thank you for connecting as well in the studio. So you join us wherever you are tonight. This is how you can get in touch.
Join us now on Twitter, #Ghana Connect Live, Facebook, Joy 99.7 FM, or send us a WhatsApp on 0244 340 437 and we will call you back. Join the nation's biggest conversation now and connect to authority.
And don't forget the hashtag again is Ghana Connect Live. You can send me a WhatsApp 0244340437. Wherever you are tonight, get in touch. We'll call a few of you to join us in the live voice conversation. Esther, I need to start with you on this. This was it a surprise to you when this documentary came? It wasn't, was it?
No.
Why?
I'm a media communications lecturer, so I come to this issue from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective, from a sector perspective and a societal one. I'm a media communications lecturer. I learned about the issue of sex for grades and sexual harassment in university as a lecturer.
You learned about it? How do you mean?
I learned because I was working with students and I had one young woman student after another come to me and say, so they call me Miss E. Miss E, how do you deal with sexual harassment in the industry? How do you deal? I thought they were speaking about the work industry of it. And I learned they weren't. They were speaking about within the educational environment. Enough young women came to me to speak about it that led me to become very, very concerned. And I was like, well, what's going on? I asked them, is this about a particular lecturer? Is that who you're referring to? They refused to say. The point is, this is not new and it is not news. So the BBC did not reveal something that thousands and thousands of people are unaware of. There's two specific issues. One is, how do we ensure there is targeted, focused, active, sector-wide action to penalize those professors who treat educational institutions as a playground for sexual deviancy? And how do we ensure that those who are being victimized get the kind of support so that their education and their future doesn't suffer? The other thing we have to do is be much more honest about our own hypocrisy.
How do you mean?
On this issue. So the surprise is ridiculous. This was not a revelation by the BBC. It is an issue that has been covered multiple times all over this country by multiple venues. Part of what the media fails to do is to connect the dots. It doesn't start with universities, and it didn't start with universities. It goes all the way down to primary schools. How do we know that? We know that because girls and women have always spoken up about sexual violence, sexual harassment, and sexual abuse. How does anybody know to avoid a particular lecturer, a particular man, a particular boss, a particular worker? How do they know? They know because somebody spoke. The somebody that spoke is often and usually a woman. What we don't deal with is the response to the speaking up, which is traditionally to shame, to silence, and to stigmatize. So when we talk about instituting an anti-sexual harassment policy, we have to be really willing to address the way in which predators get away and can get around policy. We've created environments that protect and enable predators, and then we've in those same environments, we ensure that we sanction and we silence and stigmatize victims. Even though we do that, there are women who are still speaking up. That's how there's a documentary. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing we must address and
Prof,
change.
you also work in the university environment, and you've been in that for a long time. What's your own experience with this? When you heard this, was it shock? Was it, I know this happens?
Well, I wasn't surprised because I know it happens. Lots of students have come in to complain that they have been one way or the other harassed. But the difficulty is that often they are not willing to report, no matter how you encourage them. And there is not much that can be done when they are not willing to report. It appears that we have the policies, but policy is one thing, and making the policy work and creating the enabling environment to ensure that the policy is working is another thing. So yes, it's there. And I think that for a very long time, we have had a very feministic view of the issue. It is important that...
Please explain that. What do you mean by that? Feministic view of the issue.
Feministic view of the issue, to the extent that women speak up about it, whether openly or behind the doors, and feel victimized. So there is that perception or that stereotype that this happens to women only, and that it doesn't happen to the males. Males are also sometimes harassed, but when they are harassed, we sometimes call that seduction. So I think that we cannot solve complex problems with linear solutions. We need complex solutions for complex problems. And so it is important that we move a little bit from that feministic point of view to a more gender-sensitive point of view, where we are actually interrogating the challenge or the issue to ask ourselves why they do happen. Because young women are sexualized right from, when they are young. We are made to believe that we're there to make men appreciate who we are, unconsciously or consciously. So sometimes, yes, we're waking up to the realization and being empowered by our own, but there is that subconscious mind that makes us believe that it is a man's world, which should not be the case. And so we have a problem which involves both the males and the females, but we're attempting to address it from either the male perspective only, without looking at the female side. First of all, why are the victims not ready to report? That is the question. And when they report, why is it that the follow-ups are not effective? For example, if you take the higher education institutions, the policies are there, but many young ladies will tell you they don't even know where to report.
True, we had that this week. They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know because they're not told.
No,
if you don't have,
they are told that they an exception when they are
coming. But that's the point. If you don't have child, my apologies. Continue.
Okay, that's fine. So they don't know because the policy is there, but advocating for the policy and ensuring that the policy is a living document. It's not just espoused, but it's a document in action is another thing altogether. So there is a lot of advocacy and empowerment that ought to be done. But I want to assure young women that, first of all, particularly in the university, no lecturer can make you make it. Because even if you get that A or the grade that you do not deserve, that grade could open a door for you but will never keep you in there. So we need to know that it is about learning. It is about the knowledge you acquire. It is about what you do with what you have and what you know. And it's not about saying I was helpless. There was nothing I could do. Be bold, report, and when you report, the law would deal with that person who is trying to take undue advantage of
you. I want to bring in I'll come to you if you're an Esther shortly. I want to bring you in on this. You have a very interesting perspective to this particular conversation. But let's start with, you work in a male-dominated environment, and I guess most women do do say, I mean, everywhere you seem to be the male bosses at the top. Yours is an environment where you are in entertainment. What's your own experience with this? What's your take? Where do you stand on this conversation? You've heard both sides. I mean, we have to look at it more holistically. As
so, let me come in
Papa
more
said.
with like a personal perspective.
Okay, sure.
Because when I watched the documentary, I was very shocked and disgusted. I mean,
you were?
I knew,
most people here were not.
and what? Excuse me?
Most people here were not, actually.
Oh, I think they were. Because if you see it like on a screen, it's different than like always hearing about it. And to see a woman being traumatized, not being able to sleep, going through depression, going through a trauma that lasts like for a very long period of time is very shocking. So I think that seeing this documentary, the first thing that came into my mind is we as women, we need to organize more instead of agonizing about these things. Because it is one thing to tell men they are not allowed to do this from a very little age, to dominate, to overpower, to abuse, to rape, to, I don't know, to tease, to mock, whether it be in school or at a workplace, and to blackmail. And I think this is very, very, very dangerous. When we start blackmailing people, it stops them from coming up. We are now talking about why don't they go anywhere? How can you if you are being blackmailed? That's already very violent. So I think that for me, it's about women organizing themselves and saying collectively there needs to be a stop. We need to put a stop to this. Because I was like in my artist mind, I was just thinking like, these women, why don't they connect and collectively strike? If we have no more women in educational institutions, what would happen?
But
if, for
is that
example,
realistic,
you,
though?
professor, would put down your work and say, I am not working anymore until this stops, what would happen then? And I think this is for us. This is also a very important message to us women. How do we connect to each other? How do we trust each other? And how do we help each other out of these situations? Because if I go to a female who is maybe going through the same thing, but she is saying, oh, me, I want to save my grade. I don't want to come out with it. We have already dismantled the system of loyalty that we should be having towards each other. You get it?
So, but is that realistic though?
No, it may be realistic. I'm ready to test a hypothesis and see what happens. What happens to it? But I think that it goes beyond just women. It shouldn't be a women's agenda. As a state, as a nation, Ghana owes the women as citizens a duty to protect them. They owe us. So we shouldn't make this a women's agenda. It's a national agenda. What is the state doing? It's a fundamental human right. Everybody has a right to privacy, a right to themselves, a right to their dignity. Once you're harassed, once you're abused, once you're traumatized, that is a breach of that right. It's guaranteed in the Constitution. So this will be a state issue. We expect the president to issue a statement on this. We expect a national policy. We want the national policy to be actionalized.
But they said they have policies for the
And what happened to the national policy? We are in this country. Evans, you and I have been at this work for close to 20 years. And I know that we've had a lot of talk. And it's simply talk. So what it has done to us as women is that it's reduced us to a bunch of ladies who are just lamenting. Like he said, instead of agonizing about it, we need to organize. But it's not our duty to organize. My position is that it's a duty of the state to organize. It's a duty of the state to protect us. So where is the state in this? Where is the... No, we don't need... Look, this is a fundamental human right enshrined in the Constitution. You read the Constitution. We're equal before the law. Article 17 guarantees it. So whatever rights that accrues to whoever accrues to us as equal citizens of this nation. So the state has failed in their duty towards us to protect us. And that is why we need an action that is beyond just women agenda. And so we should not attempt to make this a women's agenda. Where is the gender minister? Why is she not talking about? Where is the national agenda? Why is the nation not talking about it? And why is the nation not introducing a policy? And not just a policy that is sitting on the shelf and gathering dust and talking plenty English about it. No, this is a policy that is going to strategize protection. I say that, for instance, Shraj. Why is Shraj stating that we should have a committee, a national committee, beyond just the University of Ghana? And I posted on my Facebook that I don't even trust the University of Ghana committee to even fully and objectively investigate this matters.
Why?
Look, you can't. The rules of natural justice are clear. You can't be a judge in your own cause. You are entitled to fair hearing. Yes, they will get fair hearing. But these are their own professors who are going to sit on a matter that is likely to affect the credibility of other professors. So can we get an objective work? I think no.
Okay.
And that's why I think that beyond just the university, we need a national committee. And we need to throw out that invitation to everybody. Whoever has gone through that, and we need to go beyond just the institutions, tertiary institutions, and workplaces. Look, I bet you if we had done this documentary and extended it to other public universities, private universities, Evans, you and I know, we will be, you and I won't be shocked.
Universities,
yes,
offices, and
that's why I was coming to offices, work, sex for jobs, sex for promotion, sex for whatever. It is all over the place, and we don't talk about it like Esther said, because some way, somehow, we bastardize those who attempt to talk about it. I wrote a story about myself, my own abuse in a trotro vehicle. This morning I had a seminar. Yes, by a trotro mate.
What happened?
Pushed out his penis, grabbed my thighs. I'm telling you, in a trotro, Tematu Abekana Pass. I remember it. In SHS, my own biology lecturer, I think he was a teaching assistant or something like that, nearly raped me. I mean, he lured me into his room.
How old were you then?
I don't remember, maybe like 16 or 15.
Okay.
Or maybe even 14. So I went to his room at North Kaneshi. The only thing that saved me was just something I remember my school mother said, that get out when you are not comfortable. And this guy had, and I think just God saved me, because he just had gone out to just take a condom, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, and I managed to sneak out. So this is beyond us. I do a lot of work in rural areas, because of my foundation. And you see young girls in primary school, in JHS, in compromising positions because they don't even know. Perhaps we can tie this discussion in with the comprehensive sexual education, materials. Perhaps, no, Evans, perhaps, because we all have admitted that there's a gap. There's a vacuum that these people are taking advantage of because of the lack of knowledge.
Empowering them, you say.
Exactly. So
knowledge.
How do we start empowering them? And how do we start empowering them by creating the kind of enabling environment, including the institutions I spoke about? A national institution where you can walk to and feel comfortable enough to report with evidence.
And expect that.
Because look, when we look for the evidence, Evans, we can get it. These professors send people text messages, WhatsApp message. Thank God we have an electronic transaction act in Ghana, which allows all these electronic messages to be admissible in a court of competent jurisdiction. So these documents, these messages can be tendered in court. We should start doing that, and then we can trust the state that it is giving us the protection that we desire, the protection that we are entitled to under the law.
Esther, I'll come to you. I know you had your hand up. I'll come to you shortly, but Esther.
So I want to do some specific things. I think, first of all, it is not accurate to say that women are lamenting and agonizing and not organizing. One of the reasons why there has been the amount of action there has been is the direct result of women organizing. It is also really important to understand that whenever, as a nation, we discuss issues that primarily impact women, it is automatically described as a women's agenda. And that is because we don't think of what happens to women as an issue of national importance.
But the women
we gender
are the
it.
only element in the national. I guess that's the point that you're making, that it has to be inclusive.
But the point is, when you say it has to be inclusive, when a man talks about something that affects him, you don't say it has to be inclusive. Because when a man speaks about it, by definition, because we don't gender what happens to a man the way we gender what happens to women. So we think that sexual violence we talk about it as if it's an issue solely about and for women. And the reality is it's always been a national issue. The other point is that I think it's really important to recognize the work that is going on and has been done. And I say again, the reason we know about it is women have always spoken up. They've spoken up in the most challenging and difficult of circumstances, and they continue to do so. And then when they're silenced and called liars and told this is not true and you don't have any credible evidence. The approach that we take is designed to enable the predator. So we need to do two things. We need to become much more practical, even about the way we think about the policy. So if you have a national sexual harassment policy, then you need to have it being child-centered, so that if it applies to something that's happening to JHS, it has to be so that children in JHS understand what to do if something inappropriate happens. Equally importantly, we have to start teaching boys and men, what does it mean to be a predator? What does it mean to abuse power? How do you use your body in a way that is threatening to another girl or to a woman? And
that's my question.
But all of these things, people are taught by the societies in which they live. They are taught by men and they're taught by women. They're taught by both behavior and they're taught by silence. They're taught by what they see, they're taught by what they heard, and it comes in all kinds of ways. I think it's really important to not turn this into some idea that women are required to resolve, because women are not responsible for the sexual deviance of predator professors or any other men.
The law
and so the law, in order for the law to work, you need to get onto the ground in institutions and create the kind of policy that children and young people and young women can navigate. You can have a policy and still ensure that it protects the men primarily. How do we know that it exists? There is not a woman that you don't speak to who won't articulate an experience of being sexually harassed in a job, in a school, in a car. It is such a normalized thing. Talk to me about the men who know what it means to not be a predator. What learning have men had to say that when you go into a place of whether it's an office or education as a professor, do professors get, as the way students get a fresher course, do professors get, this is the ABC of what you cannot do as a professor, and that if you do it, these are the sanctions. And I mean the very beginning. I mean
those are there.
But I'm saying if they're there,
it may not work, but they're there.
It's not that they don't work; it's that people don't pay attention when the first sounds of alarm are being made. And so,
I think that's.
But then also, what happens is women are very. The way the society is held is that women think that women are responsible for resolving this entire issue, and that's the way we treat it. So even though it is national, even though, as I have written, women are citizens, we are 52% of the population, of course we have a right to be protected, but the way even the reporting of it, the leadership of even the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana has spoken about the reason they're embarrassed is this is now a global issue that's affecting their bottom line. Once it becomes economic, people pay attention.
Okay. Let me go around. I'll come to you, but I want to hear from Prof, because it's fundamentally input at the schools must have, but that's your domain.
Yes.
What's your reaction to all this? You agree?
Well, yes, to a very large extent, I do agree. The point is there is induction training for faculty members, but often the little I have seen is that some of these training programs do not include the ethics and professional aspects of teaching and learning. And so, yes, people are being taught about, teaching and learning and how to organize, but that professional aspect with cases of not only harassment but seduction. You see, the subject we are discussing is a very complex one. There is first the females who ought to be protected and ought to be empowered to protect themselves, first and foremost. And then there is the male side, where you have some of the females come in, and all they have been made to believe is that you've got to use what Mama Nature gave you to get what you need.
You have to flaunt it.
Yes.
To get it.
And so they go intentionally to seduce some of the males, either to get a job or to get better grades or to gain some, financial benefit. So even in the universities, we have young ladies who will intentionally, and I'm here referring to intentionality, who would go and sit in the front row with all their endowments exposed in a very suggestive manner.
And this is done deliberately.
It's very deliberate. I teach teach large classes, and I know they laugh at these lecturers. If they are listening, for goodness sake, the young ladies laugh at them, because when they fall, they say, look at him. He comes to the class and, you know, all of that. But he's already fallen. He's at I have him wrapped around my finger. And then they put the phones, you know, on speaker, and then they call them. And then, you know, the colleagues are listening to them and they laugh. There are some who would showcase the text messages. But listen to me, there are those who also would walk to the lecturer after the class and say, oh, sir, I didn't understand this aspect. And then the person may attempt to explain. And then he or she may say, can I get your number so that I can contact you later for, you know, further explanation. And if you are weak and you are not strong as a male, you may fall for this antics.
But what you say to the counter argument, which is that for a lecturer, you should not put yourself in the position where your student gets you to fall. You should know what the ethics say and act to punish that. Use the same ethics to, in fact, when a student does that, use the ethics
so this is the point I
to
made.
deal with it.
I'm not supporting that.
People say there's no circumstance you can blame a girl when harassment happens.
They have to be blamed. We have to be blamed, because when we are
even with the power imbalances in the relationship,
we still have to be blamed where the blame is ours. And I think we need to be very honest about this so that we can actually look for mechanisms or interventions to mitigate the problem. The fact of the matter is that there are some young ladies who need money for the latest iPhone 11, plus or whatever it is. There are those who also want to pay their school fees, and it is a fact. They would go to the lecturer and say, can you help me pay my fees? Right? And there is no free lunch. These things are happening. So the problem I see is that, first of all, we have policies that are not working. They are white elephants. So mostly the students do not know where to report. But for the males, when they are seduced, when they start seeing all those text messages and all of that.
Where's the policy for them too?
Absolutely. Right? Where is the policy for them to report? Where do they report? And in the universities, we have not really, generally in the environment, we have not encouraged males who are also victims of seduction or harassment to report. Why? Because society has made men believe that anyway, you can't report. It would be very embarrassing for you to go stand somewhere as a male and say that I have been harassed. So
you either agree to do it or you keep quiet.
Or you keep quiet. Okay. So we need to have a holistic approach to solving this problem. Let me add finally that we need to understand that there is no female without a male in his or her life. Every female has a father, probably a brother, probably a husband, probably a fiancé or a boyfriend or a side guy. Call it whatever it is.
Side guy that came up this week as well. Yes.
This week as well. So the fact of the matter is that we cannot address the problem without making these people understand the consequences of their illegal actions. And we have to do that in a way that is both addressing the females and addressing the males.
Men as well. Holistically, yeah. What do you stand on? You disagreed with something earlier?
Okay, so a lot of things have been said. Yes, I'm not so good at following three monologues. No, please. So, please. So let me go on. Let's go where we want to go. I'm an artist. I'm impulsive. So the thing is, first of all, I do believe it's a woman's agenda. Why? Because I think that we have relied on men for far too long. There is a long history of men being predators. This is not just yesterday. Yeah. This is it. It also includes race, Yeah, like it's the same with racism. We can't go on blaming white people for our failures. That's why I said we need to organize ourselves in terms of we need to start believing that our body and our rights are valuable. And we need to start sticking up for each other. I do believe that. And when we say we need to like include national laws, who are the people making those laws? These are mostly powerful men who are not willing to give up power. Do you hear what I said? They are not willing to give up power. So they will do everything to sabotage these so-called laws that we are now collectively asking for. You know what I mean?
I do.
So this is again like, how do we treat our sons? Why do we treat our sons differently from how we treat our daughters, for example? Why are we extra hard on our daughters and extra loose on our sons? This is the questions we need to ask ourselves as mothers. I'm not even a mother, but this is what I see around globally. Men get different treatments than women. It starts in the house. And we all have, like you said, we all have a man in the house. And how much slack do we cut that man if we know he's a cheater, if we know he's a liar, if we know he's molesting students? And if we know about this, what are we doing about this? How do we enable this behavior? I don't want to talk about laws and constitution when everything starts in the family. And we know it. Especially in Africa. I grew up in Tema. Every girl got beaten in my neighborhood. Every single girl. The mothers were mostly standing next to it, doing nothing. So what happens, for example, I saw this one movie once where girls masked up and actually beat the abuser. This is a very, funny sketch I'm painting here. But yeah, what will happen if women collectively just said, no, we need to stop this? And
so
revolutionize themselves.
Women have been saying no since the beginning of time.
But
the only reason why so many of these issues arrive the way they arrive is they've been saying no. Now, there's a difference between saying no and being heard. Your no being heard, your no being respected, and then someone acting on your no. So we think
but
that because there's no, but no one's waiting for anyone. No one's waiting for anyone.
Who is the state?
But the notion that because you said no and people did not respond, we act as if the no was not said, and that's something that we have to recognize and acknowledge. Now, I understand the argument that it starts in the family, but the point about institutions where there are codes and ethics is there is a behavior code that has to be acknowledged and respected, and that is something that you can actually police in a particular way. The failure to fully engage and acknowledge that is part of the issue. The other thing that's really important, this argument about girls seducing men.
I like the bit, just before you go, I like what you said when you say if it happens to a woman we say harassment, when it happens to a man we say seduction.
Yeah, so that's
don't you agree? That's a fundamental.
So that's part of. But I also want to say two things. The professor says we should blame the women if the women are to blame.
Yeah.
Women have always been blamed whether they're responsible or not. Women have been held responsible for what they are not responsible for. Women have been made accountable for what they are not accountable for. What has never happened is that men are required to take full responsibility for their actions. Not just responsibility, but consequence, and then that consequence turns into sanction and into loss. If it started with an inappropriate touch in school and there was a serious enough sanction, it could begin the work of alerting other potential predators that if you try it, you will lose. But we don't teach that.
I think to be fair, let
me land. No, it has not been done.
There's statistics to show that
it has not been done. I know from walking. Let me land. Let me land. I'm not talking about individual cases. I'm talking about institutionalized sector-wide action that every child is aware of, that parents are aware of, that teachers are aware of, that institutions are aware of. The reason I say that is walking into schools where girls have said, you have 15 girls making allegations against one head teacher. How do everybody said the girls should say no? How do we all know about it? Because 15 girls said no. And the head teacher sanctioned every single one of them and then punished the teachers who stood up too. So there are those who stand up in support of students being victimized and they are penalized because that's what power does. Power protects power. How do you intervene in that and make a shift and make a change? And that's part of the work. And if we don't, we have always said it comes back to the family. The point about institutions of education is they are subject to a whole entire code of ethics, and that they can be created. Yeah, they different from the family. They can be created. They can be changed. They can be reimagined in order that you change the environment that allows predators to flourish and punishes those who have been victimized. The last point is that the reality is when we talk about women sitting in front rows, wearing what is defined as seductive gear, we ignore the reality that as a professional in a space of work, your code of conduct requires you to behave a particular way. So why
But
is
that
it?
code of conduct must apply to the student as well.
But the point is, it's applied to the student. It's not applied to the professor. Why do I say that? Because we say to the professor, of course you couldn't help it. She was wearing she was showing her cleavage. You're not applying the code to the professor. You're saying his behavior was understandable because look at her cleavage.
Okay.
You're not applying the code at all, and yet you're making her responsible.
Because-
I'll come to it.
I got interrupted.
Yeah,
Why
on the-
are we even discussing this? For me, this is not even a point of discussion. That men are wrong for doing this, we all know this.
No,
There
but
is
isn't it true that women also deliberately target men?
Some
because
women. Why are we
some-
generalizing?
forgive me.
No,
Some women do that. Why are we not considering that part of the equation?
But this is this
No,
is,
but seriously.
this is
Why
kind
women?
of petty.
Why
I mean,
is it?
Yeah, I mean, because I really will always encourage women, even the women who are listening to this now,
Mhm.
if this happens to you and you know it's wrong, try to get other women on board and do something about it.
Mhm.
There is really a pressure that can be put on even powerful institutions by just collectively filing complaints. People in power will not compromise their power. We all know that. They will not. This is what the documentary also showed us. Like, if you're in power, you will not compromise your power.
Mm.
It's about pressure. It's about just, organizing
But you
that.
have to kindly address this for me. I know it's
Look, I'm
controversial.
working for
Yeah.
charity,
Mhm.
Pearl Safe Haven, for the first. It's not the first women's shelter, but it's a women's shelter where women can go to if they are sexually abused or, like, beaten or whatever. And do you know how difficult it is to find people who are actually, like, involved in this or who want to support this? I'm talking about daily life people who I, explain this project to. No one is interested.
As in supporting the
Yeah.
women who have been abused.
No, yes,
Okay.
exactly. As in supporting the women who are abused.
Why
or
is that?
even-
Why are people not interested?
Because I think we are fake. We all go out here talking, but when it comes to our own
Actually
family,
doing something
protecting
about it, okay.
our husbands, protecting our lovers, protecting our fathers, this is what we're good at.
Okay.
And I think that's the whole phony thing. And I think it's beautiful that women are responsible, and I think it's beautiful that women can change the world.
Yeah.
Because it's happening right now globally. When I'm speaking about certain activists that I can't name here, but it's mostly women who then trigger that change.
Quick question. The prof is advocating a comprehensive approach to dealing with this, which
I
includes also
Look,
the other side. They may be the minority, but you include them in the solution.
I've said this a couple of times. We shouldn't speak over each other. And the problem is, in our daily life, we want to be heard, but that also results in speaking over each other. Point and fact is, abusing someone, you're in power, abusing that person is wrong. There is no, why do we even need to
discuss this?
Yeah, men are wrong for this. They are wrong
But
for
what
this.
about the women
what-
who also
You
seduce them?
invited only women here,
Yeah, no,
right?
I know,
There is
deliberately.
there is no man here, right?
True. I am.
Exactly.
I am. And that's why I've been very quiet
So
listening.
I'm like, this should be a revolt. This should be us women
By
saying,
women.
this should be us saying, women in power, women, at the market, women everywhere should say, no, this has to stop. We should be correcting our sons. We should be correcting our husbands. We should be correcting. Like, I can't stand.
You make
the
an
way-
important point. You're saying that the women who are now speaking up against, what are they doing to their sons at home?
Exactly. What are
Okay.
they doing? How are they enabling even their husbands? How
So
they
if you're out on
enabling
social
their-
media fighting this today, ask yourself first, how am I dealing with my son at home?
Absolutely.
So that when he grows, he doesn't become the predator I am
Absolutely.
bashing tonight.
Because I think it's
Okay.
I think it's very beautiful that we have the power to give birth and to decide
Mm.
how these children turn
I
out
get the
to
point you're
be.
making. So the advocacy and the campaign shouldn't just be now. Let's do it.
I don't want to
Okay.
consistently mention that men are responsible and that they should change their behavior because that's clear.
Mm.
I'm not a class 1 teacher.
Okay.
Men have to check themselves. That is clear. But what can we do What can we do to protect each other?
Yeah.
That is the question I'm asking myself.
I think in every society we all agree that a group of people believe that they are incapable of protecting themselves, and so they come together and collectively consolidate their power and give it to a smaller group of people to guide them. There's a reason why we do that. It's not just limited to Ghana or in Africa. Everywhere in the world, there's a potential that people will go wayward. There's a potential that people will not do what they ought to do. It includes men, it includes women. And that's why the law is there, and the law is necessary. And not just the presence of the law, but the enforcement of the law and the presence of punishment attached to those laws to ensure that it becomes a deterrent enough or deterring enough to stop anybody from repeating that. So that's where I disagree with Esther when she says that it's not being done. But I understand that is majority of the cases you don't see the law being enforced, but you have a few cases reported in the law reports. You have a few cases from the sexual harassment cases
really?
Where people have gone down, they've lost their jobs because
Really?
either to that.
I don't know.
How
few are reported? I don't know of any cases. I was asking that question.
How few are reported? Well, you see, there was a story about, we covered it.
Okay.
Brongafo Regional Director of Fire Service harassed this lady who was working under him. The man lost his job. He's facing
one man.
Yes, but I'm saying I've done the research.
How many men do you
There are
want to
so
see,
many
Esther?
cases. You see, we're coming from a bottomless pit where nothing at all was done to a
that's
point
not
where
true.
we have all recognized, including the men. That's why I don't like this unfair generalization of all men, that all men are this.
No one is
They
making
are not.
unfair generalization.
You see,
it hasn't
that's
been this week.
because even those who are at the
Not here.
forefront of even enforcing some of these laws to ensure that people have gone down, some of them are men. Some of them are men. You see, so
Absolutely.
we've come from a bottomless pit where nothing was done. We saw it as normal to a point where we all are crying that this is wrong, including some of these same men who have realized that, look, other men are bastardizing them. They're giving them a bad image. We're learning, we are exposed, we are growing. So we've got to come to a point where, like the Constitution says, it's a fundamental human right that accrues to a man and a woman. So like you said, yes, men are harassed. But of course, we know that according to the statistics, they're in the
It's overwhelmingly,
minority.
yes.
But the minority, because the statistics also, like Prof said, does not capture reported cases. Captures
But
only
men- no,
reported cases.
How many men would like to go and report
But
that?
that's why we need to have the
you can laugh
conversation.
that. You can laugh out of the
But
room.
that is
like,
why-
Electra goes and says,
But that
this
is an,
woman
that
seduced
is
you.
an
Who will
error.
believe you?
But that is an error. Why should aren't we equal before the law? Is the law
No,
that?
but isn't
no,
there
hang on.
unfairness in how this is being treated? That a lecturer who's seduced cannot report it.
Who says he can't report it?
Where?
He knows the rules.
Where would
There's
you
a
report it?
sexual harassment committee in all the schools. In all the schools,
You're
the
a
lecturers are aware of
lecturer.
it.
You're a
Why are they not
lecturer.
reporting? Indeed, if they have evidence to that effect, why are they
No,
not
I
reporting?
want to hear you. You say what?
Yes,
say that again. Why is that foolish?
I said that's foolish.
Why?
Because you're a lecturer. You have a responsibility to teach.
Yeah,
it's
but-
not it's not your business. If somebody comes to you to try and seduce you, you close the door. It's simple. You
No,
say-
I think the person has a right to the law. The person has a right to the law.
Now-
But the point is that most of them don't have the evidence.
We
talking
all
about.
know
the
what's
evidence that
right.
these young
We are
girls have, and they are presenting in text messages, in letters, in calls, and all that. The evidence that we saw some in the BBC documentary. Some of these lectures don't have it. Maybe that's why they are not reporting.
I
but
wanna go
I
to-
think that they are entitled to
It's
remedy.
just right and wrong. This
Yeah.
is just wrong.
I get it. Just a quick word to a student who's just joined us. Hello, Adepa. You're from University of Ghana, correct?
Yeah, I
What's
am.
your view on this? Very
Well,
briefly.
We've had a lot of conversations about that, and I agree that the conversation has moved from what women wear, what seduction really is. I think what we really need to look at is the system that is protecting predators, because that is the truth. Because if you go into the university currently, I think the problem also is, like she was saying, having a revolution where students are informed as to what access they have to protect themselves, and that doesn't exist.
Empowering them with information.
Yes, because most students don't even read the anti-sexual harassment policy, which is available to everybody. So I think the institutions need to be more visible on campus. And I remember suggesting on one of the interviews we had at our debate meeting that it's important to also look at another aspect of having possibly an independent body, because the truth is that
Independent of the university.
yes, because the truth is that you're reporting your case to someone to deal with that case for you, and this is a lecturer or probably a professor who is also friends with the lecturer, because it goes beyond why women can't report over time. Because I think the argument that a woman should immediately report what has been done to her is insensitive, because sexual harassment or abuse is worse than armed robbery, because you invade someone's dignity, you invade someone's integrity, someone's privacy. And I think that is largely because society does not recognize women's body autonomy, because if how women dress is dictated mostly by men in patriarchal systems, what women should say, how they should conduct themselves. So there's a whole lot to be done, especially it has to start at home, because I grew up in a patriarchal home where a lot of things happen, and that is grooming how my brother is growing up, and I hope that in my own home my son doesn't grow up the same way. So I think people are ignoring the conversations that need to be had. What we need to be discussing are the present systems. Why is it that we have systems that are still protecting the predators? Because the interesting fact is that no evidence is ever enough to decide whether or not rape or sexual harassment took place, and as long as we get petty in deciding the extent of an evidence, we'll never solve the problem. Because when you want to come out and say you've been raped or you've been touched or fondled in a way that you are not comfortable with, it then becomes, what were you wearing? Where did you find yourself? Like, who did it? And all of these things, it's insensitive, and I think most men don't get how it feels to be a woman who cannot walk on the street at 9 p.m.
also get it? Those in power who are supposed to also help solve the problem?
I think more can be done, because sometimes these women in power don't get to the grassroots to understand what is actually happening on the grounds, because mostly when they find themselves in that position, they need to link backwards, because it's important for you to connect to those who are down there, because a lot of things are going on. The reason why domestic violence still persists is that even victims are being groomed in a way that they have to protect their own predators. Where a woman is beaten or sexually abused by her husband, she then thinks of protecting her husband for some economic reason or some societal blame that she's going to get. So I think empowering women goes beyond report the case when it happens to you. Systems need to change, and it needs to be so evident that when you go to the institution for justice, you are assured that yes, you are going to get it.
I'm going to come back to the Prof. Briefly.
Yes,
forgive me, my producer.
Thank you for that.
Prof, forgive me, my producer is going to kill me if I don't do this. I heard you, Suleiman. I just joined from Germany. He's been on the line for a while. Quick word to him, and I'll come back to the studio. Prof, just a second for me. Hello, Haji.
Hello, Ivan.
Yes, quickly. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts are very simple. First of all, we have to commend BBC. Secondly, I think Shraj should be called into this matter to investigate the matter. And my third point is that I think Margaret Amwako-Hene should not be on the committee because her comments has really prejudiced the whole process. Today I listened to the Vice Chancellor when he also said that we should not allow BBC and foreigners to come and destroy our institutions. By this comment, I think the VC's stance has also been compromised, and this is why I'm calling on Shraj to come on board and assist in this investigation. And then also, in as much as we are discussing this as a problem, we should also be very mindful not to empower women to use this issue to blackmail men. I believe that as a professor or as a lecturer, the problem when it comes, you are the first person to be blamed, because we cannot say that a policeman is justifiable because the one who is giving the bribe gave the bribe and he couldn't resist and all of that. Similar analysis go for a lecturer. However, I'm saying that if we want to solve this problem, we should look at it from all the angles, from the angle of the student, from the angle of the professor, so that we don't also end up giving the young girls the tool to blackmail the lecturers, because they know that once they say they have been sexually harassed, the lecturer is off and gone. So we have to be careful in dealing with this issue.
And thank you for that last point you made. And that has been an issue this week, in fact, that reared its head in the case of the University VC's lecturer, VC of University of Ghana, where it's people are taking advantage of the current environment of Me Too and others to simply blackmail men and destroy their reputation. All it takes is for a woman to go on Facebook, Twitter, and say, he, Mr. A or B, harassed me, and he's convicted and sentenced already. Prof, you have something to say as we wrap up?
All right, thank you very much. I think that I do agree with the concerns that have been raised, but to assure my colleagues here on the panel that we shouldn't assume that the system is already flawed, that there is no confidence in the system. Just about 3 months ago or so, the University of Professional Studies sacked 3 lecturers who and you can follow up on this. They sacked 3 lecturers who were reported to have been involved in sexual harassment, and they did not mince words. The investigation committee is set up, is independent, and then from the investigation committee you go to the disciplinary committee, and these people were sacked. But it would interest us to know that in some cases you would find that one person, one young lady, has been involved with about 2 males in the same department. How did that happen? So what I'm saying is that we have a responsibility. Attempting to bribe is as unacceptable as accepting the bribe.
Both ways.
Both ways. So in as much as we are saying, why did you collect the bribe? We should also say, why did you offer the bribe? We should hold each other accountable. But I would like to advocate that, first of all, we should have a strong empowerment drive where we are empowering people to believe in themselves and have that self-worth and value. The second thing is that we should have independent systems of reporting, and I advocate for, let's say, a website or whatever it is that is independent, where people can go and report confidentially. Then the evidence can be called for actions to be taken. We could also have a toll-free number, because sometimes people are afraid that when they report, they will be identified. Yes, so it is very important for us to ensure that people have the confidence to report. But beyond that, we should have the confidence to protect our own self.
Yeah, final thoughts?
Oh no, I stick to my thoughts. I think you said it all. The student who came said it very...
He spoke your mind.
No, she didn't speak my mind. My mind is that it starts at home. And the way we treat our sons and our daughters. And she said it, then she brought it to the next level, you know.
Esther?
Very sharp.
We have to absolutely treat sexual harassment not as an individual issue happening to an individual girl, but as one that is about institutions and one that is about nations. Absolutely, girls and women are citizens of this nation and they're entitled to its protection. I agree with you, Afua, about that. But also that part of learning to be a good citizen is teaching boys what it means to be a man and what it means to be a man who understands how to handle his power and handle his body with the same care, clarity, and scrutiny that we insist on teaching girls about what it means to deal with, protect, and handle their bodies. And if we did that, we would be for the first time looking equitably about how people handle their bodies in spaces with each other. That is something we have never done, and that would be part of what I call a child-centered policy that's about each of us learning what it means to be in space with one another and be respectful. And when you cross the line, you have to learn what that means, not just how to draw back, but why it's problematic. The last thing is for boys to learn and for men to learn that if there is a girl in your classroom, in your institution, in your department who's being harassed and she shares it with you, make it your issue. Don't think that it's just hers. So if we recognize that if a girl is not safe, then none of us are safe, then we would take it and move it as citizens and not genderize the sexual harassment. That is the work. That is the work.
Well, I think I'll take it from what she said, that we shouldn't genderize sexual harassment, because anytime you want to talk about sexual abuse, it becomes a woman thing, because we've been having heated arguments on our debate pages, and you realize that most men feel attacked by these kind of issues. So I think people should be global citizens and genuinely concerned, because it could be your sister, it could be your friend, it could be your girlfriend. I don't think people should wait till it's someone close to you. We need to be sensitive and see this from a human perspective, because sexual harassment is worse and it's a national crisis that we should look at.
Thank you very much. If I'm going to take that, I'm going to not hear you out because you've already spoken already. But thank you at the great to hear from you. Really great, powerful points you made there. Esther, always thank you. Prof, excited to have you here, and I'm going to end with a mix from Yakoto. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having
me. When is your next concert? You should pull up one for Ghana who would like to come.
I'll let you know.
Oh, please. Yes, I would wait to hear it. But this is Yakoto's selection ending Ghana Connected. Enjoy the rest of your evening.